Hey everyone, welcome back to BMW Blog. I am here driving the i4 iDrive 35 that I've had for about the past week, and I've actually put quite a bit of miles on it. Actually, as a matter of fact, so far with the car, I've been driving it for about 800 miles, and I've gotten to experience this car driving in a more urban setting. I got to see a little bit more of what it's like with driving a car, like I said, in the city. I live in Southern California. Everywhere around here there's just always traffic. So even on the freeways here, it's not like you're going 85 all the time for the most part, especially anything even close to rush hour. You're probably doing under 50 to 55 miles an hour for a large part of your commute. All right, so let's get a brief overview about the i4 iDrive 35. This particular car, it is a rear-wheel drive single motor EV that's making 282 horsepower, 295 foot-pounds of torque, and it is a 68 kilowatt hour usable battery pack. So that's what you're actually going to be able to drive on. The gross battery size is actually just over 70 kilowatt hours. So it is smaller than what you're seeing in the iDrive 40, which is actually over 80 kilowatt hours. I believe it's like 83. So you're losing about 13, 14 kilowatt hours of battery capacity. Now, luckily that does help decrease the weight, which is good. But I guess the question is 68 kilowatt hour battery usable? Do you get enough range for that? You can drive around every day, not have to worry about range anxiety? And from what I've seen, the answer is actually yes. All right, so real briefly, let's talk about the exterior design of the i4. Now, it hasn't changed. By the time you're seeing this video, you probably already saw that the i4 is getting a refresh for next year for the 2025 model year. So you're gonna see some slight changes when it comes to the headlights, interior steering wheel, a couple other minor updates when it comes to trim and colors. But as far as this is actually spec'd with the Drivetrain gray. I actually really like the color. It kind of looks just like a normal gray when it's not sunny, but when it is sunny, like on today, you do notice it has quite a bit of orange flake into the metallic paint, which I think actually looks really nice in the sunlight. Your typical 4 Series Grand Coupe and i4 kidney grills, yeah, they're very big. A lot of people don't like them. Me in particular, it doesn't bother me. I've just gotten used to it. And then this actually really well, they did a good job at actually incorporating the driver's assistance professional package radar sensor up front for your level 2 semi-autonomous driving functions. Not fully autonomous, but in LA traffic, it is really nice. We'll get into that later. But again, as you can see, this also comes with the 19-inch aero optimized wheels. They look different from what you would see on like a 4 Series Grand Coupe. And again, it's because these wheels, again, they big focus on efficiency and improving range. So they are a little bit more aerodynamically adapted to be able to provide less turbulence, kind of help with range and your aerodynamics of the car, reducing drag. But what's interesting is they offer an 18-inch wheel. And unfortunately, it's only in one color. I wish they would offer more wheels in 18-inch. Some people don't like the smaller wheel look. But the fact of the matter is that when you have lighter wheels that are smaller with a tire with a little bit thicker sidewall, you're reducing the overall unsprung mass of the car. And when you reduce unsprung mass, you help improve range. So your 18-inch wheels are actually what's going to give you the most range and the best efficiency with this car. This is a nice middle ground. There are 20-inch options, but I would say just stick with 19 or 18. Don't go any higher. Overall, you can also see this car does come equipped with the laser light headlights. Unfortunately, in the US, we get kind of basically a muted version of it. We don't get the full capabilities that they do in Europe, and that has to do with basic kind of car design regulations here in the US haven't quite caught up when it comes to safety standards that we get in other countries. These are incredible headlights, and if you see what they can do in Europe as far as the amount of light that they can throw out and the distance at which they can do it, it's really quite amazing. Unfortunately, like I said, we don't get that here, but these are still really great headlights, and at night, it just makes it very easy to kind of see where you're going. Overall, though, like I said, I don't mind the design of the car. The front, it's not my favorite BMW, but it's not bad. So now let's go ahead and let's take a look inside the interior of this i4. Now, what you're going to notice, this is essentially the very standard BMW corporate interior that we've seen in the 3 Series and 4 Series for quite some time for the i4 as well. Really no major changes here. Again, we see iDrive 8.5, which actually works really well. Some of the minor improvements that you notice especially come when it comes to the climate functions. So go ahead and turn the car on. Just a little bit easier to be able to make some changes when it comes to the HVAC system. And so far, I like these little improvements. iDrive 8 I was able to get used to, but the small improvements we're seeing with 8.5 are great. So again, for the typical BMW steering wheel from the 3 and 4 series, you have your wireless charging pad down below with your 2 cup holders and a USB port, which I always found to be in a strange location because right near the cup holders is probably where you're going to spill, but again, not my decision. Also, this being an EV, they did actually do a pretty good job adding some of the destination inputs for being able to find out where a charging station is nearby, for if you need to go through and find a charger that's near you whenever you don't have access to a charger at home, or maybe you're on an extended road trip. So again, it's as simple as clicking on that little charging icon. It says searching for charging stations that are nearby. It can take about a minute or two, but it's nice. It'll bring you to any kind of Electrify America or EVgo station that might be nearby. It also will bring you to ChargePoint, and you can actually go a little bit further through and actually customize some of these. So these are all in particular level 2 AC charging points that are in my neighborhood and around town. If you're looking for, again, DC fast charging, these will appear on here as well, like for when you're on a road trip. So you select that, it'll precondition the battery for you as you go. A nice little feature there. But then again, Apple CarPlay itself actually does have features now where it allows you to find charging stations through Apple CarPlay. However, when you set your navigation through Apple CarPlay, it will not precondition the battery before arrival, which is just going to help optimize and speed up your charging, get a little bit quicker charging rate when you do that. But overall, navigation system is great. Really enjoy that. And Apple CarPlay works flawlessly. It's wireless, connects very quickly. I've really enjoyed kind of the infotainment. BMW has actually done a fantastic job, I would say. Between a lot of the German companies, BMW is now probably making the best infotainment system, minus the fact that just adding another row here for physical HVAC controls, I think would basically just make this kind of perfect. Some people don't like the sort of slammed up tablet style screen here. Some people, they would like it to be integrated within the dash. It doesn't bother me. Again, I think because of this layout and where it is, it makes it just very easy to be able to reach everything on this very large 15-inch screen really without any issues. Another thing that I did want to talk about being an EV is that you are able to customize some of your charging settings right here through iDrive. So by clicking here through charging, there's different charging modes. This one, it's set to immediately, or you can actually, by using the car, be able to kind of choose when you would like it to charge. So if you only want it to charge during off-peak hours, again, you can go through and have it only charge during a particular time slot during the day. You can set a departure time, and basically that'll help make sure that the car will be topped off right before you leave, based on whatever your standard charge is when you plug in from the night before, which is kind of nice that it offers that level of customization. I currently have it set to immediate because I can also customize that through the Enphase charger that I have in my garage. But depending on what charger you have, that may be different. So again, if you know there's this particular time in the morning that you leave and start your commute, you can set that up here. Your charging limit, you can also go through it and customize. I have it set to 48 amp, which is the highest AC level charging ampage that it will take. But again, if you have a 40 amp or a 32 amp unit in your garage, you just want to make sure there aren't any issues with it communicating and charging. You can go through and you can manually change that yourself here. There's also your charging target. Now, for today, I'm going to be doing quite a bit of driving. I'm actually probably going to be leaving here soon to get some photos of the car and talk about what it's like driving this car through an urban area or through the city like here in Southern California. So I did change that to 100% for today. However, the rest of the week that I've been driving this car, I've kept that at 80%. Now, keeping it at 80%, kind of just a general guideline when it comes to maintaining battery health. If you only top off your car at 80% and not the full 100% of the usable battery pack, it's just going to help the battery last longer over time. That way, when the car has 150,000 miles on it, 200,000 miles, you're not going to run into issues where you're losing a substantial amount of your charge or your range. So typically, you want to keep it at 80% or below. So the rest of the week, I've had it kept to that. Today, I did bring it up to 100, but I did have it earlier when I first got the car at 100%. We'll talk about the range here a little bit later. Again, there's some other settings that you have in here. So again, battery precondition, that's where you can actually reach that through here. So you can manually touch that if you don't have it set in your navigation for when you go to a DC fast charger. Again, that's just going to help you unlock that full 178 kilowatt max charging speeds. Unlock charging cable, that's, again, if you want to make sure that it's not locked, or you'd be able to take it out when you want to, or if you want to be able to keep it locked to prevent someone from just removing your charging cable. You can even actually have location-based charging settings, which is pretty cool. So you can go in here and then say based on location. That way it'll know based on where you are. If you're getting close to like a DC fast charger that you may be using a lot, it'll automatically know and automatically start going through and precondition the battery or unlocking your charge port. Kind of cool. So again, a lot of nice customization settings when it comes to this car as far as EV charging settings. But what we're going to do now is we've talked about the interior a little bit. Let's go and let's drive the car and talk about what it's like to drive. Now, it's interesting to note that 282 horsepower in of itself is actually roughly what the 330e is. It's more than what you would get out of, say, your standard 330i. It's not bad power output. It actually feels, you know, a healthy bit of push every time you put your foot on the accelerator at a stoplight. The acceleration is not really an issue here. It's quoted at 5.8. I think it's probably a little bit quicker than that. It's not bad. So again, acceleration-wise for just daily driving, it's fine. I wouldn't call it slow. According to the EPA range, you're gonna be getting about roughly 250 miles is what they say out of mixed driving. Myself, having done, like I said, probably more city driving than highway driving, I've been able to get kind of a good impression to see like what a realistic range is that you would get with this car. And I actually charged this car up to 100%, and I drove it down to 3% battery life. So I was able to actually get 278 miles of range, which is pretty good. All things considered, when the EPA is telling you you're going to get roughly about 250. And like I said, that 2%, it actually stayed at 2 and 3% for a while. So I had a feeling that I could probably drive a good little bit further. And when I checked with my math, I was getting roughly about 4.4 to 4.5 miles per kilowatt. So again, for every kilowatt hour battery, I am getting, like I said, about 4 to 5 miles, which is pretty good. That's actually very efficient. As a result of that, even with this smaller size battery, the range is more than adequate. It took me over 3 days to kind of get through that entire range. Yeah, you have to remember, most people are only driving probably about 40 miles a day. I think the average American commute as of last year, I believe, was 37 miles. It seems to fluctuate between 37 to 39. So the reality is most people are probably not going to hit that 200-mile range in a day unless you're on some kind of extended road trip. And even then, 250 to 280 miles is a good amount of range. That's actually enough to get from where I live, which is Rancho Cucamonga, California. It's the Inland Empire, about 45 miles outside downtown LA, to Vegas on a single charge. What is it that allows for this car to be so efficient? Well, one thing is that this is a single motor car. It's rear-wheel drive only. So again, you're not getting dual motors and, you know, parasitic losses from two different motors. You're only getting it from one wheelbase that's being driven. And what's interesting is that BMW actually uses a slightly different electric motor than a lot of the other auto industries. So Tesla, Rivian, a lot of these EVs out there, what you'll typically see is two major types of motors. You're either going to see your induction type motors, or you're going to see your permanent magnet motors. And those are the two most common. BMW essentially has developed a different type of electric motor that is more similar to an induction motor than it is a permanent magnet, because it doesn't use any rare earth metals in it, which is one of the advantage of BMW's electric motor that they're using. But what is interesting is that despite not using any rare earth metals, they're able to get a little bit more efficiency gains out of it as compared to an induction motor, which sometimes suffers from efficiency issues, especially on the highway. They're typically, induction motors are better suited more for city driving, whereas permanent magnet motors typically tend to perform a little bit better on the highway. Permanent magnet motors basically can never be shut off. There's always some sort of magnetic force that's being applied, whereas induction motors you can turn off. So there's cost and benefits to both. But I will say one of the interesting things about BMW's electric motors that they do use brushes. So it's not a brushless motor, there are brushes, and as a result of that, over time they can wear out. So you can see the motor's efficiency get lost over time, and it's something that probably most likely around that 100,000 mile mark, there you do have to get serviced. You may have to get parts of the motor replaced, but it is fairly compact. I believe it only weighs 67 pounds from the research that I saw, which is great because it's compact and lightweight. But despite all that, like I said, it's been very efficient for what I need. And it delivers power in a way that is, you get a lot of very good low-end torque, what electric motors are known for, but it still provides power fairly linearly. It doesn't smack you with all the power right up front and then kind of no drama after that. They've done a very good job at tuning this powertrain to actually feel pretty good. So I've really enjoyed the powertrain quite a bit. Now again, this being BMW's cheapest entry-level electric car, there are going to be some downsides to it. So again, this thing has been a wonderful car when it comes to daily driving in the city, and just dealing with traffic. This particular model does have the Driver's Assistance Pro package. It's the Levels 2 Driver's Assistance. It's not fully autonomous, but like for right now, while dealing in, I've got kind of a traffic jam, I'm sitting here going about 55 miles an hour along with everyone else. This isn't bad. It basically helps keep me in my lane, and then it helps keep me a certain distance to the car in front of me. No drama. I'm able to sit here and talk to the camera and feel fairly confident. But again, I'm still keeping my eyes on the road, my hands on the steering wheel. But it's just this level of driver's assistant tech is wonderful for living and dealing in LA traffic. I've got no complaints. This is probably one of the better driver's assistance systems out there. Now, getting back to kind of the compromises with this car and what it's good at and why you would want this car over some other EV. 35 is really geared towards basic your daily driving. Again, it doesn't have an M badge in front of it. Even if you get the M Sport appearance package, it's really just kind of an appearance package. This is by no means what I would consider a performance car. You're not going to take this to the track. I would not bring this as the first car you'd want to bring to the canyons for some kind of canyon road, and it's probably not going to be the first car you're going to bring to a drag strip either. It doesn't have those performance chops, which I think is okay. I think this car is being absolutely honest with itself of just being a really good daily driver, and that's okay. There are not adaptive dampers with this car. It is a fixed damper, and because of that, you're really only getting kind of one damper setting. It is tuned for comfort. It is not tuned for performance, and that's fine. I actually have found this to be a very comfortable car to drive around, and between that and the fact that you're getting power delivered to the car that's making no noise as compared to a gasoline motor, it's a very quiet car to enjoy on a commute. Again, it's very well insulated. Cabin noise, I would say, is fairly low. In particular, it is an option. I've turned off the iconic sounds. If you're not familiar, BMW essentially hired Hans Zimmer to create sounds for this car so that it wasn't always 100% quiet, that you would actually kind of hear something that would give you some semblance of acceleration, or to kind of, I guess, mimic what the feeling would be of having a regular gasoline motor, except it doesn't sound anything like a gas-powered car. It's a weird sound. It almost sounds like kind of the Dolby Digital introduction. I don't know if you remember from years ago, when that would show that the movie had some particular type of sound settings, and it would just, I don't know, it was kind of hard to explain. But the moral of the story is, I've turned those off because I found them to be kind of gimmicky and just weird. So like I said, cabin's very well insulated. It's very comfortable. Acceleration is fine. The driver assistance tech works great. I think one of the things that I really like about this car in particular, and what BMW does pretty well, some of the other car brands, especially some of the German brands out there, have made their electric car lineup something completely different from the rest of their gas-powered lineup. BMW, as a matter of kind of cost savings, and I think it's actually a pretty smart business strategy, is these EVs actually share a chassis with their gas-powered siblings. So this is called the CLAR architecture. All of the current G20 Generation 3 Series, 4 Series Grand Coupe, 4 Series, and i4 all share the same chassis. And there's benefits to that. One being, this is a great chassis. It's incredibly stiff, really helps with handling. The steering is a little bit numb and a little bit dead, but it's very accurate. And again, you feel like you're very much in control of the car. You don't feel like it's loose and all over the place. Part of that is, again, chassis is great. But like I said, there are some downsides when it comes to packaging. A lot of ground up EVs do have a frunk. This doesn't. The entire front of the car is basically just a lot of your HVAC controls, charging infrastructure. All those parts and components are basically shoved under the hood, and then you have the battery underneath. And it's just a little bit of a shame, just because of the fact that You could probably get quite a bit more storage space if you had a frunk or a little bit larger of a trunk. The trunk in particular is a 10.1 cubic feet is what BMW tells you. It feels a little bit bigger than that, honestly. I don't think it's actually 10.1, but it's enough room to fit a couple suitcases in there. And what is nice is because it is an EV, below you actually have quite a bit of storage space underneath the actual bottom of the trunk, and there are two very large cubbies on the side as well. Since I've had the car, I've actually been averaging basically just underneath 4 miles per kilowatt hour. And as a reminder, there is a 68 kilowatt hour usable battery pack with this car. So when you do the math, you're really getting almost like, you know, easily 240 miles of range, probably close to 270 on that. I've also done a range test with this car, and from 100% down to 2%, unfortunately I wasn't able to quite get it down to 0. I was able to get 278 miles on that test, which is fantastic when you consider there was still a buffer. I probably could have easily have gotten 285, maybe almost 290 miles on a full charge. I think the reality is, I think some people, they worry too much about range. Really anything over 250 is more than adequate. But I will say I completely understand when people are concerned with range and range anxiety. Right now, the current EV infrastructure, it still has a lot of work that needs to be done in order to really make EVs go fully mainstream and really become the prominent method of transportation for cars here in the US or worldwide. And some of those issues I ran into this week while living with the car, while trying to charge it. A lot of the times I would find if I didn't charge overnight and I needed to go find a DC fast charger, a lot of times there would be a line, there would be a lot of broken chargers, or there would be cars that would just be sitting in the stall and they wouldn't let you charge. So again, there aren't quite enough chargers out there yet when it comes to DC fast chargers for making road trips or those quick in and out charging stops to be really viable or easy. As a matter of fact, when I went to a charging station, there were 4 cars in front of me. I had to wait about 25 minutes until I could actually get to the charger itself. There were some people before me that were having issues with the charger. Luckily, I was able to get it figured out, but the point is, charging is still kind of a hassle. It is not as easy as just filling up your gas tank, and I'll fully admit that. And I'm not going to try to tell you and sell you that charging an EV is easy. However, the nice thing about EV ownership and when it comes to charging isn't just the fact that you have to use DC fast chargers all the time. There is a much wider network of level 2 AC chargers that you can find in all kinds of parking garages, at shopping centers, grocery stores. I mean, they're pretty much everywhere. And again, they're not going to charge a car as quickly, but because this car is able to accept 48 amp charging, when it comes to AC charging, you're able to get basically between about 9.5 kilowatts of power added with a 48 amp charger. So because of that, you're able to get between about like 35 to 45 miles of range added in an hour of charging. The tech with iDrive 8.5, I think we've talked about this in the last couple of reviews, but again, you're very familiar with it by now. Great system. I wish there were HVAC controls. That's kind of my only gripe with it. Screen's awesome, easy to use. Now, where would you get an iDrive 35 i4 over something, say, like a Tesla Model 3 or some of the other EVs on the market? I will say, compared to some of those other EVs, especially Tesla in particular, some of them are not made well. Some of them definitely have quality control issues. Some of them can be very loud inside. I will say, this car it's very quiet, like I've just said, and it is built extremely well. So this is a premium product, and that's really what you're buying into. But at the same time, again, with a starting price of $52,000, I believe this is optioned to be roughly about $57,000. It is a little bit more expensive than some of those other options. Again, this is probably closer in price to almost like a Tesla Model 3 Performance rather than the base long-range car. And at that point, are you saying, like, are you really getting a good value? And I think it depends on what you prioritize. Do you prioritize luxury and build quality, or do you prioritize what you see on a spec sheet and whatever the most affordable option is? Like I said, I think that's up for you to decide. But I think for me, just having to live and deal with the stress of a city like this just provides a lot of comfort. And I think I would probably prioritize that luxury aspect. That's just me. I guess one major flaw with this car that I will say when it comes to pricing isn't really the car's fault, but I would say The biggest issue with this car is the current EV landscape in general. EVs right now, they have crashed in price considerably, especially on the used market. Even very lightly used EVs are going for significant discounts. So let's just take, for example, like I said, the MSRP in this car, $52,000, $56,000, $57,000 the way it's spec'd. For the same money that you can get one of these, you can also get an Audi e-tron GT under 30,000 miles, still very new, for the same money. That was originally a $110,000 to $125,000 car only about a year and a half ago. Porsche Taycans, you can get those in the low 60s. Again, these are incredibly nice EVs that have fantastic charging that is well above the charging speeds that we see with this car. And on top of that, again, they're much more performance oriented than this is. So it's a whole other class of car that, even slightly used, is going for about the same money as this right now. And that's just kind of indicative of the car market in general. But you can also find lately used i4 iDrive 40s in the $30,000 to roughly $40,000 range for like under $50,000. This might not be a good option to buy brand new, but what I will say, this might be a very good car to lease because of the fact that cars' residuals are falling so quickly. If you don't drive much, that is actually where a lease might make sense in this, and for a couple reasons. One, there's a $7,500 federal tax credit as of the time of filming this in April 2024 on any EV. Now, you don't get that if you buy it, get that if you lease it. So now all of a sudden this $52,000 car is really closer to $45,000, and then I'm sure by the time you get other dealership incentives on there, the price is probably going to be even lower. And then again, once you're done with your lease, you just hand the car back, and you don't have to worry about the negative equity situation that a lot of people are finding themselves in today. So leasing this car might actually make a lot of sense, like I said, unless you do a ton of driving. Up to you. You have access to a home charger. Owning an i4 like this is wonderful. It's amazing. The Enphase charger that I have in my garage has made living with this car fantastic, because every time I would come home, I would just plug it in, have it charge up to 80%, and then after that, I really had nothing else to worry about. So like I said, overall, I've really enjoyed this car. I just think that in today's current market, it's probably a little bit too expensive for what you're getting. I think that the range probably could be better, but I will say between this and an iDrive 40, where you're getting about an additional 40 to 50 miles of range added to it, that's the one I would go for. It is an additional roughly $4,000 or so, but I would say that additional convenience is worth it. And it also is, it's a little bit faster and a little bit more potent, but it's a nice luxury car to commute around in. It's a well-built EV that's kind of punches above its weight when it comes to efficiency. I hope you enjoyed this review. Please like and subscribe if you would like, and I will see you on the next one.